But now I'm, again, really, really proud to introduce a good friend of mine from my home city of Bergen on the west coast of Norway, Cecilia. She works as a tester, software tester.
Tester is fair.
Yeah, but she's really good. Well, she's actually awesome at a type of testing that I'm fascinated about, because she looks into how she can abuse whatever kind of app or software you have for purposes like stalking and harassment and other fun things you can do to other people. And she's incredibly good at that. But today her talk is, I know, but I have a system, and it's about, well, I will leave that to you, Cecilia. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ped. Welcome to my talk about password managers and the ones who's not using them. Now, first, password managers, I assume you know what they are. Please nod if you know what a password manager is. Okay, I'm just going to say this anyway. Password managers are really useful tools to manage passwords, passkeys, PIN codes, passphrases, like all of this. I'm going to say passwords, but it's going to cover all the other type of secrets as well. It's really useful to do this in businesses as well. Like, it's good for you as a private individual, but in businesses, you really need to manage a lot of passwords that, for some reason or another, must be shared. Like, routers don't really care that you have a lot of admins. They only have one password. All the admins need to know that password, and so on. But even if you are buying the software or tool and rolling out it in company, there's a lot of people, even though it's useful, that won't be using it. It's kind of annoying. Like, this is really good for you. Why won't you be using this tool? And this is what my talk is about. I really hope that you had the opportunity to see Mia Landsheim's talk yesterday about why the kids couldn't care less about your password device. It's really good. And if you're on YouTube now, go back and see the recording. It will give more context to this talk. In Mia's talk, she talks about how kids, young people, are sharing passwords and why it's important for them to share passwords. And also she talks about the consequences of sharing passwords and what's going on. And it's important that we, who influence policies, products, and do security training, understand the context that the kids are in and the habits that they have, because in a few years, we're going to hire them. And we really need to facilitate and mitigate the risks that their bad habits is bringing with them. Shortly about me, I am Cecilie Vian. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm Sinobel. I work as a consultant when it comes to testing and security at the company called Beauvais. My specialty is usability, as Per said, or abusability of software. How can I be bad towards someone with your stuff? I have a bachelor degree in educational psychology, and I have a master degree in philosophy of technology. So that's what's going on in my head all the time. I spend a lot of time thinking about human users, what's make them human, why are they doing things, looking at what they're doing, and so on. If there's something you don't understand, please write it down. I'll take questions at the end. Okay. I like humans. This is very important to understand. I like humans. I may sometimes loathe individuals, but in general, I like humans. I find human and people fascinating. I love watching people. It's kind of rude, but I really like watching and trying to figure out what is making you tick, why are you doing this, and so on. Now, this is a kitten slide. It means that this is something very basic that I need to tell you, so we're on the same page and you understand me. But if you're on board what I'm saying already, you can just look at this adorable kitten. Password managers is in a company primarily for managing passwords related to the company. As I mentioned, the routers, the servers, the databases, the HR systems, the banking, the alarm system, this phone, email, logging onto your computer, opening the doors, all that stuff. But it's also a very good tool for the individual employees to manage the huge amount of passwords a lot of the time that they meet in a business context. I recently changed job. It was wonderful that I could just leave all the passwords that I didn't need anymore behind. It was beautiful. I didn't have to drag it with me and just start pulling it out in between my private passwords because I have different vaults for that. If you want some advice on how to choose an enterprise solution for password managers, go see my talk from 2 years ago at PasswordsCon in 2019. 6 minutes in and start watching there, okay? Let's move on. I work in Norway. Norway is a very digital country. Like digital banking is the norm. Everybody's using digital banking. Nobody's using cash anymore. If you want anything done anywhere, you have to take your devices with you because you're going to go through a digital process of some kind. It doesn't matter if your leg's broken or if you're buying a house or if you're going to pay taxes or stay at a hotel. So if you're going to come visit Norway, make sure that your data plan is in order. Norwegian businesses is also very digital. They do their banking, their taxes, their reporting, their everything digital. This is not only the big businesses and the big industries, it's also the one-person plumber company type of things. All of them are digital to some degree. That means that the maturity level of security between all the different companies are very, very different. We have the ones that are really solid, have security training, everybody is on board on routines and all that. But we also have a lot of the middle ground where the IT people is typically good. But then there's the rest of the company. Of course, I do understand spending money and time of mitigating risks in the high risk areas, which is the IT department often manage. But you need to move, at some point, you need to move from that hybrid situation between good combined with very bad security into everybody should be on board on having a good security culture in our organization. And getting a grip of on this situation, password manager is really a good step to do. It's very low threshold. It doesn't cost a lot. By the way, keep it that way. It's easy. But when rolling out password managers in a company, you're going to discover that there's a mismatch between the amount of employees that you have and the people using it. Sometimes it's closer, sometimes it's worse. Of course, it's not a surprise. The tech-savvy people, they will, when you roll out the password managers and said, "Are we going to start paying for this? This is the tool that you get to use." Some of them is going to go, "Yes, you choose the one that's my favorite." There's going to be a small crowd of those people, and then there's going to be an early majority that's "Okay, fine, this is a new tool. Sounds like a good idea. I'm just going to set it up because Then there's going to be a huge amount of people that is more late adopters. They're "Yeah, I did get the email. I didn't have the time at the time, but since you have sent me 4, 5, 6 emails now, maybe I should do this." And then you're going to have a lot of people who don't. They don't. Now, I don't have numbers for this. But very often the non-users are in administration, they are managers, or newly employees. Also, people who are suffering a life crisis may also have very difficulty in adopting new habits and starting using like password managers, because it takes a lot of thinking, or some thinking. Tech-savvy people will set up a password manager enterprise solution within 15 minutes. They'll do it before their lunch. It's not a problem. For non-technical users, the time they need to allocate to start using a password manager is, in my experience, 1 hour. And a lot of people they avoid starting because they're not sure how long it's going to take. They just know it's going to take time. 1 hour. Setting up means installing it on more than one device, orientating yourself in what is this software, what does it do? Try out how it's working, discover some features that you like or hate, and adding enough password for this to be a useful tool. For companies, the success rate for non-tech people to start using Password Manager is very affected by how much time do they have to get started. If they're squeezed on time, or if setting up a password manager is competing with more rewarding tasks, also known as my job, they're not going to do it. A lot of companies think, or may think, well, that's okay, we're just going to order them. We're just going to tell them to do this. We'll write it into our company policy. Emails will be sent out, reminders are being sent, sometimes they send out threats, like if you don't do this, this and this can happen, we'll cut your salary in some way. And I understand that because employers have the right to instruct their employees. It's completely normal. But if security was that easy, we could all go home. I wouldn't have a job. So what happens is that people, when you try to order someone to do something that they don't want to do or have conflicted feelings about, is that they may do the absolute minimum so they don't get in trouble, for instance, so they don't get their salary slashed. They will do the registration process, but they won't be using the software. And you end up in this, like the non-tech users or the non-users end up in a hybrid situation where you can see they have installed things and they will show up in your list as an installed, but there's no improvement of security at all. So my first advice, make sure everybody has enough paid time to set this up. At least an hour. Okay? Moving on. You have to understand people don't like dealing with passwords. Even people like me and Pat, they're conflicted feelings. There's a lot of subconscious processes that go on in a human mind at all times. It's not impossible to manipulate people into dealing with password managers, but it's not ethical. It's incredibly disrespectful, and it may have unforeseen spillover effects into other areas of life. For instance, one of the reasons people hate dealing with passwords is because they feel that the rules around password change all the time, and that it's difficult, that it's like they have to remember things. Like there's a lot of, when we make policies, it lasts a long time in people's mind. Nothing goes really away. In addition, when people feel trapped or forced, they tend to start behaving slightly irrational and reactive. They will do the opposite of what you're telling them to do, or a version of opposite. For instance, if I tell you, do not hack the hotel while you're here, I'm instructing you. And what happens is your beautiful minds will start like, well, I'm not hacking the hotel, or I'm not hacking the hotel. You start putting effort into both sort of comply with what I said, but also trying to defy me. And that is the magic of instruction. It's terrible. So when I do security training, we have to be very careful in how we instruct people. If it feels manipulative or forced, it's only human to react that way. I'll defy you some way. You insist of me changing my password every other week, I'll defy that in some way. Yeah. I like to talk with people, and I like to listen to people. I like to know what are their thoughts and how do they feel about, for instance, password managers. My goal is to understand them better so that I and you can facilitate both the subconscious decision that they're going to do all the time that they're not aware of, but also be respectful for the reasons that they think they have for doing things. People don't really understand themselves well, but we still have to be respectful towards them. And if you listen to the reason that people give for not using Password Manager, you start to discover all these irrational thought patterns that they have. So my challenge to you is listen to them in a respectful, no sarcasm way, so that they can see their own irrational thought patterns and we can change and mitigate the risks associated with them. For instance, the first one. Hands up if you ever heard the first one. Only a few, okay. When I say, do you have a password manager? And they was like, oh, no, I have a system. Well, yeah. Now I can, of course, I can prove why they're wrong, why systems are crap. But instead of trying to like beat common sense into them with my words, I just says, that's okay. You can have a password manager even though you have a system. And then interesting things start happening because that was sort of like their mental block. Like, don't talk to me. Like, this is my way of rejecting that huge imaginary task that you're giving me. Another thing that people say is, well, yes, but I don't have access to anything important. And that one is real, like when I hear that, it makes me sad because it means that they don't think what they're doing is important. That's terrible. Why would we hire them and pay them if they wasn't important? So I tell them, well, I think you're important and the things that you do are very important and you have access to a lot of things that are important. Please listen to me. I work in security. I should know. And then, again, interesting things can happen. I started, but something happened. I like that one. Because it's very easy. It's usually a technical problem. So I said, let me look at that with you so we can resolve that with you. Not let me do that for you. I used it, but then is harder because that means there's a technical issue, but they have lost faith in the product and the tool. So I have to motivate them again before I can solve their technical issues. Like, it's worth the time it takes to learn this thing. The one, it doesn't really work well with things, that can happen. A lot of the time, that means that the password input prompt happens in the wrong type of fields. We can't necessarily fix it. It's a whole long thing. I can't fix it now. So when that happens, I would just have to remote to them and say, oh, that's normal, but you'll be fine. You can deal with that. You can do this anyway. Like, you're okay. And they... I have it, but I can't really understand what happened. That's also a technical issue. Like, typically in the first part of the process, when they're signing on, something got messed up and they're stuck. It's like, okay, let me look at that with you so that we can figure it out. And the last one, oh, I have it, but I don't really use it. That is human speech for it's boring. I don't see a value to this. Hang on, sorry, I just need my cursor on the right screen. Well, what can I do about it being boring? Well, yeah, it's boring. It's super boring adding a bunch of passwords. So, you know what? Grab a bottle of wine and some friends and set it up. You know, adding password is boring, but you're gonna do it anyway. It's good for you anyway. Do a password and Prosecco. So, conversations like these are delicate, but if you get that moment where you catch their interest, acknowledge their feelings so that you can change their mind. Like you can expand that little gap that you get. If you mess it up by either like not acknowledging their feelings, or if you says, oh yeah, but you have to wait forever, ever and ever to have this resolved, or yeah, we're going to send somebody who's not going to be able to fix that, but sort of like helping you, you're going to cement that feeling that they have that this thing is not something I want in my life. Learning to use a password manager is learning. And a lot of the time we think that, okay, but you can just learn it. No, you can't. You have to make your mind ready for learning. The first step is feeling safe. If you're afraid of losing your job while you do something, you're not going to learn well or at all. You're going to spend all your energy on trying to get out of the situation and avoid losing your job. That's not the learning that we want. Now, this is purely speculative from my side, but I don't have the numbers for this. But my general impression when it comes to issues of the non-users, a lot of the managers have this problem. They think they should be able to do this, but they worry so much. They worry about failing because they're a manager. Weren't they supposed to be like the best or better than older people? There's a lot of worrying happening. But you need to get your managers on board. Like, it's tempting to ignore that the managers are not using password managers, but if you do, you're going to fail. Managers influence and has a lot to say about how you prioritize your time. If the managers is not on board, they cannot help their team. They cannot help with recovery, which is a big part of an enterprise solution. They are not pushing password managers to new hires, and they do not show that this is a valuable thing to spend time on. And if they don't show that, you're not going to do that. You're going to do your job instead. Okay? That's my second advice. Get the manager on board. Yes. After making sure that people feel safe, like there's room for mistakes and so on, people need to feel that this is something they can actually manage to do. And especially the non-tech, like the administrative people, they need to feel that this is something that within their reach of like managing to do. So when they ask for help or they're open to get help, I will set it up for them while they're with me. And then I tell them to add the passwords. And when they've added a few passwords, I say, and now you do this and this to set up the next device. I don't go from I set up the first device and now you're going to set up the next device. That's too big of a step. You need to feel that you can accomplish something in between. And adding the passwords are really, really easy. Just, gentle, caring attention, and you can do this. You'll be fine. a million years ago, when the dinosaurs were young and roamed the earth, a man I know was a manager. This is not the man that was a manager. You are not a manager. There was actually somebody else who is also a dinosaur. Email wasn't something new, but not everybody was using it. And this organization recognized that it had a problem. They are using email to communicate internally in the organization. It's a good, efficient tool, but so many were not using email. They were not logging on. And the problem was that, so they didn't get the information. That's the first problem. And the second problem is that they consumed a huge amount of support time because they logged on so rarely, they forgot how to do it in between all the times. So this manager thought about it for a while, and it was getting close to summer. And in the summer, they had a freezer, and in that freezer, there was ice cream that you can buy. So he sent out an email to everyone, blind carbon copy, not carbon copy, so it looks like it comes to you personally. And he said, you can go and have an ice cream for free if you want. Just reply to the email and say that you took one so I can keep track of it. The important thing is, do not tell anyone. Of course they told anyone. First rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. They told. They were gossiping. Did you know you can get ice cream if you read your email once in a while? So what happened was that people who didn't like to read their email because they find it difficult were now like, maybe I should check up on my email because I might get a free ice cream. You can do this with password managers. I highly recommend adding, first of all, the password for the Wi-Fi into the password manager in your company. So whenever people are asking, what's the password for the guest network or whatever, you should say, look in the vault. If you have like discounts or agreements or some kind of discount codes or other kind of services that are nice, add them as well. And then it becomes like the people who are using password managers, they get extra perks. You can have them as well. We're not, there's no like in and out group. You can get it. You just need to set up a password manager. If you need help, you can just talk to that person. Be fine. You can also do this with your parents. Guess what I'm telling my mom every time she asks, what's the Wi-Fi password again? Look in the vault, Mom. You just use your thumb to log in. So yeah, this is how I build culture, not ordering people. This is culture. Yeah. You made your users feel safe. You made the humans feel like they can master this. Now they're ready for learning. What are you going to teach them? This text is in Norwegian. It says, do you want to forget all your passwords this summer? The second line is, get help with setting up your password manager at the 24th of June in the cantina, 12 to 15. This was a drop-in situation. You can just drop in. It's very casual, not dangerous at all. I had Christer Kovik, who's sitting over there, my colleague. He helped me out with this, and the results were really fun. Because people were coming in and they were like the shameful pose that is, will I get hurt by coming here and confessing that I hadn't set up my password manager a year ago like I should or something? And I was like, no judging here. I'm only here to help you. I'm not being sarcastic. There's no judgment. And what happened was that afterwards, people were like, they feel relieved. They were rid of the anxious, guilty feelings. They were happy. So guess what happened? They told people. So now we have a lot of non-technical security advocates in our organization. that is winning. That is really winning. It's fantastic. Because usually security is like the IT people is doing that. And if we're going to deal with that, it's because we like them and do them a favor by dealing with security. So yeah. But now we have the non-technical people. And it's like, you can talk to her. She's real nice. She will just help you and stuff. So yeah. To sum it up, it is normal that not everybody is ready to use your tool. People can change their mind about password managers. Even if you didn't catch them the first time around, there's hope. But you need to be ready for when that possibility presents itself, or you need to facilitate that happens. Like we did with the summer promise of you're allowed to forget all your passwords. And also make sure that you facilitate growth and learning in general. Because when they're done learning about password managers, they're going to be ready to learn about other security stuff. And then you can be like, what do I want to teach them next? It's awesome. So yeah. Questions?
Thank you, Cecilia. Questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you.
You can take down the mask so I can hear you better. It's allowed.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question in the context of a larger company. Do you have tips about teaching developers and the IT people to actually implement like SSO 2FA so that the burden of having to do things and manage security properly is not on the user side, but more on the actually having a safe services and users just having to remember one password and this kind of stuff?
I do. And that's security training in general. So security training, you have to start like really low bar. Like what is the absolute minimum that we need them to know? And start with training that first. And then it's like, okay, what is relevant for your position? Don't teach everybody the same thing. Is it relevant for this person's position? Yes or no? If it's not, don't insist on they going through all these like security training things if it's not relevant. And if it's relevant, let people do it as a group thing. If you can, do it physically. It's much easier to learn things and feel safe when you can see that there's no danger. You can see people's faces. They're relaxed, they're okay. I can ask them questions. I'll be fine. But don't expect that MFA or all the other things is going to happen. Like they probably learned in school. No, they didn't. Make sure that they are onboarded properly. And also, this is one of my best tricks ever. Feed them. Hungry people don't learn. So do onboarding with food, give them time, and be nice. You can teach them anything, really.
Thanks for your talk. On the subject of feeling safe using a password manager, how do you counter the impression that people have when they're told by their IT department that they should be using a password manager, that the IT department has some sort of an evil motive around that? Like, oh, they want to they know that I'm going to store my bank password in there and they want to get to my bank account or something like that. How do you deal with that impression?
First of all, doesn't matter what the question when you meet the user. If they have a question or a concern, take them serious. Again, they're gonna have like subconscious. It's mostly about their feelings. They're just worried. So just take them serious. Show them if they want to. Use some time, because if you reassure them, like spend time on them. I acknowledge that you're worried. Is there anything I can do to help you understand this better or ease your worries? And then you have a conversation. Like, do that in the beginning. Whenever you're going to do changes to your culture, in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of noise. But after a while, when all the other people are starting to use this, it's going to feel safer. But in the beginning, it's going to be noisy and a lot of insecurity going on. This is why it's very important to have the managers on board. If the managers use it, probably safe enough for me as well.
Hi. I think we all know these. I think we know all these shared accounts for third-party services that are used across the department. Those type of accounts make transition easier because everybody needs to use the password manager at the same time when the password changes? Or do you think this prevents people from moving because it's more scary and harder to implement?
I'm not sure if I heard all of your question, but I think you asked, what about shared accounts? Is it easier and safer, or is it going to feel more dangerous because then it's apparent that we're sharing things? In most organizations, you need to share passwords. That's just the way it is. If you do it within Password Manager, this is a fantastic trick. If you do it within the Password Manager, if I change the password, he won't notice because he's so used to just copying the password out of the Password Manager. He's not going to notice that I changed the password as long as it works. And this is one of the things that we don't talk about a lot in businesses, and that is unfaithful servants or people who has to leave the company in disgrace. We need to change those passwords discreetly because the case may not be settled. It may be a lot of difficulties around it, like legal difficulties. So being able to change passwords discreetly is actually very important.
Hi, Cecile. Thanks for the talk. My question is about those old IT guys who will not share the root password for all of the Cisco routers, and the guy who will not share the password for the special safe that we keep the special stuff in, that guy, right? Because he knows if he shares that password, we might not need him anymore, you know?
Are you telling me they're humans?
Yes, with their fears and
Feed them. I promise you, if you're going to ask something big, this is social engineering. If you're going to ask something big or uncomfortable from someone, make sure they have a medium plus blood sugar levels. So because then they're more patient with listening to you and your reasons. Because you may or may not have good reasons for getting that password, but you may not get the time to explain why you really need that, why they should trust you, because they're hungry.
But me and Jim would really like to have a chat with you outside afterwards.
how to deal with that.
I'm not sure if I should do this on camera, but a few of my colleagues know, if I show up at work with cake, somebody's in trouble. It's not because I'm going to be rude or horrible to them. It's just that I need them to be able to be open to what I'm going to tell them that is going to be demanding, that's going to mess with their feelings a bit. They're going to feel bad. Cake helps.
Good trick. More questions? Yeah.
So I'm in the compliance and audit space, and the shared passwords is always a contention point around maintaining security controls. How do you deal with knowing who accessed the password and made a mistake, and how would we audit that?
You should definitely talk to 1Password and LastPass, because they're two companies that do enterprise, and get them to tell you how do you do that, because they have functionality for that. But since they're not paying me, you'll have to talk to their salespeople. Now, do we have time? 2.5 minutes? Yep. Good. I want to show you something, because this is my bonus slide for you. Life changes, and when life changes, people reevaluate what's going on. And here are some life-changing events. These are events that usually trigger large changes in behavior. Getting married, new romantic relationships. Like if you meet someone or your employees meet somebody, they fall in love, they're going to start thinking, should I share my Netflix with them? And so on. Like, what is the sensible level of sharing that we want to do and so on. So they start reevaluating their life. Then they're open to, you know what? It's really useful to have a password manager in that situation. Oh, and our program, you can get one free for your girlfriend or boyfriend. Kids, when people have kids, they do the same. They realize that the world can be a dangerous place. And imagine teenagers. Wouldn't it be awesome if your teenagers had a password manager so they don't get hacked? Imagine how many passwords that teenager is gonna has in front of them for the rest of their lives. We're talking hundreds of passwords. Wouldn't it be a good habit to teach your teenager? And then you can teach them about MFA later on, because it's a super easy thing to have when you already have a password manager. Life-threatening disease or sudden death. What happened? We hear the news, somebody died or very ill. And the second thought in our head is, what if that happens to me? Are all my things in order? Do I have my affairs in order? Nah, maybe. How do I share all our family pictures? How do I make sure that my spouse or loved ones get them if I die? Have you heard about password managers? Divorce. Divorce happen, and divorce is one of the most common reasons why people send me a message like, hi, could we talk about the thing? Because I didn't do it properly, and I realized I'm going to make a lot of new passwords on a very short time. And also, I know it's bad to reuse passwords. Can we do the thing? And I said, remember I told you, get a bottle of wine and some Prosecco and hang out with friends. That's when they call me. It's when the divorce happens. And again, yeah. These are life-changing events. Use it for good. Thank you all for your attention. If you have more feedback or comments or anything.
Thank you, Cecilia. So there's a 15-minute break before we continue with the next speaker, next talk. Thank you.
I'm in the hall, so if you have something, you can call me. No, talk to me.